Tag TV brings you daily news bulletin from India. Breaking news and views from India.
Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Lepakshi Khurana. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Tuesday, the 12th of March. India says Kashmir suicide bomb attack conspirator among 18 terrorists killed in 3 weeks. Baloch activists highlight Pakistani atrocities in Geneva. An Afghan government announces new date for traditional assembly Loya Jirga. And now for all the details. A top Indian Army commander on Monday said that security forces had killed at least 18 terrorists in India's Jammu and Kashmir province in the past 3 weeks. The official said most of the slain terrorists were from Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed, the group that claimed responsibility for the suicide bombing that killed at least 40 Indian paramilitary personnel in Pulwama district last month.
A top Indian Army commander in India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province said on Monday that security forces had killed at least 18 terrorists in the region in the past 3 weeks. The official said most of the dead were from Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed or JEM terror group, which claimed responsibility for the suicide bombing that killed at least 40 Indian paramilitary personnel in Pulwama district on February 14th. Addressing a joint press conference, top army and police officials said that security forces had on Monday gunned down JEM's second commander, Mudassir, who was the main conspirator behind the Pulwama suicide bomb attack.
Ever since Pulwama convoy attack on 14th of February, the first operation was on 18th February, and in last 21 days, we have been getting after the JEM, and we have eliminated 18 terrorists so far. In last 21 days, out of them 14 being from JEM and 6 of them their main commanders.
The claims of the Indian Army comes at a time when tensions are high between nuclear-armed neighbours, India and Pakistan. India had claimed it had incontrovertibly evidence of Pakistan's involvement in the Pulwama attack. India has long accused Pakistan of harbouring terror groups to use them as proxy to mount attacks on Indian soil. Pakistan denies the charges.
Saudi Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Adel Al-Zubair on Monday met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi to boost bilateral ties between India and Saudi Arabia. The meeting was confirmed via a tweet from the official account of the Prime Minister Modi's office. The Saudi minister, who came to India after visiting Pakistan, also met his Indian counterpart Sushma Swaraj, and the two leaders held talks on cooperation in counter-terrorism. The visit comes after Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman visited India last month and announced his vision of investment opportunities of more than $100 billion in the country over the next 2 years. Both the countries had also signed agreements on investment in infrastructure, housing sector and tourism during the visit. Moving on, a research analyst with a Europe-based think tank, Ioana Barakova, on Monday told the United Nations Human Rights Council that Pakistan is willing to bring the world to the brink of war in order to defend its terrorists. She said that while Pakistan continues to export terrorism, it also remains a member state of the UN Council, a matter that needs contemplation.
Ioana Barakova, a researcher at the European Foundation for South Asian Studies or EFSAS, has told the United Nations Human Rights Council or UNHRC that Pakistan is willing to bring the world to the brink of war in order to defend its terrorists. While speaking during the ongoing 40th session of the UNHRC in Geneva, Barakova referred the last month's suicide bombing claimed by Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed terror group, which killed at least 40 Indian security personnel in India's Jammu and Kashmir. She told the United Nations that Pakistan continues to use terrorist outfits to engage in proxy warfare against its neighbors.
In the wake of the recent terrorist attack in Pulwama and Indian-administered Jammu and Kashmir perpetrated by Jaish-e-Mohammed, Pakistan's subsequent airstrikes unveil an ugly truth. The country is willing to bring the world to the brink of war and threaten to use its nuclear arsenal just in order to defend its terrorists. The sheer thought of such utterly reckless behavior should horrify all of us.
The UN Security Council's consolidated list of terrorist individuals and entities includes 139 entries from Pakistan. Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Haqqani Network and Jamaat-ud-Dawa are all based in Pakistan and believed to be receiving state protection. Barakova also said that while Pakistan continues to export terrorism, it also remains a member state of the UN Council, a matter that warrants contemplation.
Meanwhile, Baloch activists on Monday highlighted atrocities being inflicted upon innocent Baloch people by Pakistani forces and their proxy terror organizations in Geneva and demanded the international community to intervene. They held a conference and a demonstration to voice their concerns outside the UNHRC building in Geneva.
Baloch activists on Monday highlighted the issue of gross human rights violations in Balochistan by Pakistani army and their proxy terror organizations. A conference titled Balochistan of Pakistan, the Human Cost was organized by Baloch Human Rights Council UK in a tent at Broken Chair in front of the UNHRC building in Geneva. They demanded the immediate release of hundreds of Baloch activists and intellectuals who they blamed have been kidnapped and are being tortured by the Pakistani army and intelligence agencies.
These terror outfits are involved, along with Pakistani security forces, along with Pakistan's military, in abduction, kidnapping of political activists. They are involved in the torture and the killing, and the targeted killing and dumping of Baloch activists. So this is what's been happening in Balochistan for the last 15 years. More than 20,000 people have disappeared.
UN shall investigate whatever is going on and who is disappeared. The first thing is Pakistan shall sign and ratify the Convention on Enforced Disappearance, and then Pakistan shall be forced or asked to be practically committed and transparent.
A protest was also held on Monday outside the UNHRC building in Geneva to raise the issue and aware the international community about the plight of the Baloch people. Baloch activists have long blamed that Pakistani forces use extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances as means to muzzle dissenting voices in Balochistan. They have been protesting worldwide to seek help from the international community and human rights organizations.
In news from Afghanistan, Afghan government on Monday announced April 29th as the new date for holding the traditional assembly Loya Jirga. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani in a decree has assigned a commission led by Umair Dodzai, the head of the High Peace Council Secretariat, to convene the consultative Grand Council meet on peace.
Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, in a decree on Monday, assigned a commission led by Umair Dodzai, the head of the High Peace Council Secretariat, to convene the consultative Loya Jirga on peace on April 29th. The Jirga, which is a traditional assembly of Afghan delegates from all layers of the society, was initially scheduled for March 17th. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Abdullah on Monday said the Afghan people have serious concerns over the nature of peace talks between the US and the Taliban in Doha because of not having information about the nature of these talks.
آقای عمر داودزای باعث رئیس کمیسیون برگزاری لوی جرگه مشورتی صلح گماشتن و به کمیسیون وظیفه سپردن که به تاریخ 9 سال 1398 لوی جرگه مشورتی صلح را برگزار نماید.
Afghan government finalized the date for the peace jirga at the time when the Taliban had constantly refused to engage into direct talks with it and has branded it as a puppet government. However, the talks between the group and the US in Doha entered their 15th day on Monday, but the details of the negotiations have not been made public so far.
More news from Afghanistan. Afghanistan has rejected the report that has claimed Taliban's founding leader Mullah Omar lived near a US base in the country. The report, which quotes a book by Dutch journalist Bertel Dam, says that Mullah Omar lived within walking distance of a US base in Zabul province for years.
Afghan government on Monday rejected a report which says Mullah Omar, Taliban's founding leader, had lived near a US base in Afghanistan before he died. The report, which quotes Searching for an Enemy by Dutch journalist Betty Dam, says that Mullah Omar lived within walking distance of US bases in Afghanistan for years. US and Afghan leaders believed the Taliban leader fled to and eventually died in Pakistan. However, the new book says Omar was living just 3 miles from a major US forward operating base in Zabul province, where he died in 2013.
د خپور شوی گزارش به اساس ناقص او تخیلی گزارش دی او په دې کې هڅه شوې ده چې طالبانو خارجي امیانو ته او طالبانو خپل ته یو کاذب هویت ورکړي. د افغانستان حکومت کافي اندازه شواهد او اسناد لري چې دا ثابتوي چې ملا عمر په پاکستان کې او عملته وفات شوی دی.
Dutch journalist Betty Dam spent more than 5 years researching the book and interviewed Jabbar Omri, Omar's bodyguard who hid and protected him after the Taliban regime was overthrown. The author spent years reporting in Afghanistan and also wrote another book about former Afghan President Hamid Karzai.
A United Nations human rights investigator on Myanmar voiced a deep concern on Monday over Bangladesh's plan to relocate 23,000 Rohingya refugees to a remote island in April. She said that the island may not be habitable and can create a potential new crisis in the country.
United Nations human rights investigator on Myanmar, Yangi Lee, on Monday voiced concern over Bangladesh's plan to reallocate 23,000 Rohingya refugees in April to a remote island called Bhasanchar. She told the United Nations Human Rights Council that ill-planned relocation and relocations without the consent of the refugees concerned have the potential to create new crises in the country. Lee, who is banned by a Myanmar government from visiting, also told the Geneva Forum that up to 10,000 civilians are reported to have fled their homes in Myanmar's Rakhine province since November due to violence and lack of humanitarian aid.
I am troubled to hear reports from Bangladesh government officials that in April they plan to relocate 23,000 Rohingya refugees from the camps in Cox's Bazar to Bhasanchar, a recently emerged island in the Bay of Bengal.
Meanwhile, Bangladesh says moving refugees to Bhasanchar, which means floating island, will ease chronic overcrowding in its camps at Cox's Bazar, which holds some 730,000 Rohingyas. More than 700,000 Rohingyas fled a sweeping army crackdown in Myanmar's Rakhine province last year, launched in response to Rohingyas' insurgent attacks on the security forces.
The colour manufacturing units in India's northern Kanpur city are running overtime to meet the huge demand of colours from different parts of the country. There has been a huge surge in demand of colours as the country is gearing up to celebrate Holi, the festival of colours.
With Hindu Festival of Colours, Holi, round the corner, the colourful manufacturing units in Kanpur city in India's northern Uttar Pradesh province are working overtime to meet the huge demand of colours from across the country. Workers at the colour manufacturing units are being seen mixing pigment and water and then drying the powder under the sun in open grounds. After the colours are dried, perfumes and scents are added to give them an attractive fragrance. Holi, which is celebrated with the onset of spring season, brings together people from all classes and age groups as they play with colours, distribute sweets and dance together.
मतलब इसमें कई कलर हैं जैसे मतलब लाल है, पीला है, हरा है, गुलाबी है, बैंगनी है, कपासी है, सूगापंखी है, फिरोजी है, इसी तरह हम कलर बनाते हैं.
Holi is undoubtedly one of the most fun-filled of the Hindu festivals and it attracts a lot of tourists to India. During the celebrations, merrymakers throng the streets, parks and public places, daubing each other in diverse colours, looking funny and joyous.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. India says Kashmir's suicide bomb attack conspirator among 18 terrorists killed in 3 weeks. Baloch activists highlight Pakistani atrocities in Geneva. An Afghan government announces new date for traditional assembly, Loya Jirga. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.